Welcome to episode 11 of the series of Duties of the Heart, and we're about to start chapter 10 of the Gate of the Unity of God, and this is quite a long chapter, so I'm going to probably split it up into 2 episodes, maybe even 3, but let's see how we get on. So in this chapter, as commented by Chovot HaLevavot, he describes this chapter as follows. After Rabbi Bachya brought proofs that God is the true unity, he returns to clarify that God has no plurality from the view of the attributes of praise and good traits with which we praise God and which are found in Scripture. So, Rabbi Bachya begins. They, the divine attributes, divide into 2 divisions. Essential, which is in essence, and active from his deeds. So, Marpei Lenefesh comments as follows. Some attributes are in God as etzem, or essence, even if he did not create the world, whilst others we call him due to his deeds. So Marpei Lenefesh is saying that there is an essence to God, and that is everlasting, and there are some other attributes that we give to him due to what we see of his handiwork or his generosity. This is what he means. So Rabbi Bachya continues. The reason we call them essential in essence is because they are permanent traits of God, belonging to him before the creations were created, and after their creation, these attributes continue to apply to him and to his glorious essence. These attributes are 3 in number. Number 1, that God permanently exists. Number 2, that God is one. Number 3, that God is eternal without beginning. Pas Lechem comments on this. Even after the creation, no existing thing can be associated with him in these 3 attributes. They can be ascribed exclusively to his glorious essence, unlike the active attributes that the creations can associate with them a bit, as will be explained, and as the Chachomim say in Shabbos 133 Amud Beis, cling to his ways. Just like he is merciful, so too be merciful. Just like he is gracious, so too be gracious, etc. And Rabbi Bachya continues, we ascribe to him these 3 attributes and speak of them in order to indicate his being and true existence, to call attention to his glory, to make human beings understand that they have a creator whom they are under duty to serve. We must ascribe to him existence, for his existence is demonstrated by proofs based on the evidence of his handiworks, as it is written in Yeshaya 40 verse 26. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who has created these things. He that brings out their host by number. He calls them all by name, by the greatness of his might, for he is strong in power, not one fails. We must necessarily ascribe existence to him because it is a principle accepted by our reason that for something which is non-existent, no action or result can come. Since his works and creations are manifest, his existence is equally manifest to our intellect. We ascribe to him eternity, no beginning, because rational arguments have demonstrated that the world must have a first cause, which had no previous cause before it, and a beginning which had no prior beginning. It has been demonstrated that the number of causes cannot be infinite. It logically follows that the Creator is the first beginning, before whom there is no beginning. And this is what is meant by his eternity, as it is written in Tehillim, chapter 90, verse 2, from everlasting to everlasting you are God. And also he quotes from Isaiah 43:10, before me there was no God formed, neither shall there any be after me. And Rabbi Bachya continues, regarding declaring of him that he is one, We have already sufficiently demonstrated this by well-known arguments, and it has been established by clear evidence that true unity is inseparable from his glorious essence. This unity implies absence of plurality in his being, the absence of change, transformation, incident, origin or destruction, joining or removal, comparison or association, or any other properties of things that are plural. It is necessary for you to understand that these attributes do not imply any kind of change in his glorious essence, but only to denote a negation of their opposites. What the attribution of them should convey in our minds is that the creator of the world is neither plural, nor non-existent, nor created, which are the opposites of unity, existence, and eternity. Likewise, it is necessary for you to understand that each one of these three attributes we mentioned implies the other two when we analyze them. The explanation of this is as follows. When true unity is the inseparable and permanent property of a thing, that thing must necessarily also be eternally existing without beginning, since that which is non-existent cannot be ascribed neither unity nor plurality. Hence, if true, absolute unity is the attribute of anything and essentially belongs to it, it logically follows that the attribute of existence with its implication also belongs to it. It must also be eternal, because true absolute unity neither comes into existence nor passes out of existence, neither changes nor is transferred. Hence, it must be eternal, for it has no beginning. Hence, that which the matter of true unity belongs has also the attributes of existence and eternity. So too, we say that the attributes of permanent existence attributed to a thing implies the attribution to it of absolute unity and eternity. So here's some commentary from Chovot HaLevavot on this concept of permanent existence. He quotes, and I quote from him, "This he derived earlier from the premises in chapter 5 that the world must have a creator, for the number of beginnings cannot be infinite, and that a thing cannot make itself. Hence the creator's existence must be a permanent existence. For otherwise, how could he come to exist after he did not exist, since a thing cannot make itself?" And Rabbi Bachya continues, "It implies absolute unity, since that which permanently exists could not have come into existence from nothing, and cannot pass from the state of existence into that of non-existence. Such a thing is not plural, since which is plural is not permanently existent, as it must have been preceded by unity. Therefore, that which exists permanently is not plural, and is accordingly one. The attribute of eternity, which is without beginning, also belongs to it, since that which exists permanently has neither beginning nor end, and is accordingly eternal. So too, we assert that the attribute of eternity belonging to any being also implies in that being the attribute of absolute unity and permanent existence. It implies unity, since that which is eternal has no beginning, and that which has no beginning is not plural, since all things plural have a beginning, namely a parent unity. Therefore, that which is plural is not eternal, and that which is eternal can only be one. Therefore, the attribute of absolute unity is implied in the attribute of eternity. Likewise, the attribute of existence is implied in that of eternity, for the non-existent cannot be described as eternal or created. We have clarified that these three attributes are one in meaning and imply the same thing. They do not imply any change in the Creator's glorious essence, nor do they imply any incidental property or plurality in his being, because all that we are to understand by them is that the Creator is neither non-existent, nor created, nor plural. If we could express his being in a single word which would denote all three of these attributes as they are understood by the intellect, so that these three attributes would arise in our mind when the one word was used, we would use that word to express it. But since we do not find such a word in any of the spoken languages which would designate the true conception of God, we are forced to express it with more than one word. The plurality in the Creator's attributes does not, however, exist in his glorious essence, but is due to inadequacy of language on the part of the speaker to express the conception in one term. You must understand that, regarding the Creator, there is none like him, and whatever attributes we speak of regarding him, you are to infer from them that the denial of their opposites. As Aristotle said, negating attributes of God gives a truer conception of him than affirming attributes. For all affirmative attributes ascribed to God must necessarily ascribe properties of essence or incidental properties. And he who created essence and incidental properties has not the properties of his creatures in his glorious essence, but the denial of such properties to him is undoubtedly true and appropriate to him, for he is above all attributes and forms, similarity or comparison. Therefore you must understand from these attributes that they refer to the negation of their opposites. And Marpeh Lenefesh gives some commentary on what I just said, and I quote him, "It is better to negate ascribing to the Creator attributes which are lacking on him. For example, it is more correct to say that the Creator is not plural, that not non-existent, not created, which are opposites, and which are more true than saying and affirming on him that he is the true unity, permanently existing, eternal, because we are not capable of understanding what is true unity." So as I understand it, these when you negate things about God, how does that give you a better idea of God? How I see it is that you're stripping off preconceived notions of what God is. And it's almost like you're peeling away the petals of a flower and you're getting to the true essence of what is what we should think of as God. And we need to do this because over time, and since we are young, we are taught certain things. You naturally ascribe man-like or human-like features to something that is very opposite of that. So the more you can gradually strip away these preconceived notions, the clearer an idea of God you have in your mind. So let's continue with now the active attributes. So Rabbi Pakuda continues, "The active attributes of God are those which we speak of the Creator with reference to his works. It is possible, when speaking of them, to associate him with some of his creations. We were permitted, however, to ascribe these attributes to him because of the forced necessity to acquaint ourselves with and realize his existence, in order that we assume on ourselves the duty of his service. We have already found that the Torah and the books of the prophets extensively use these active attributes, as also in the Psalms of prophets and saints. They are used in two manners. 1. Attributes which denote physical form, such as the verse from Bereshit chapter 1 verse 27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created man." And also from Genesis 9:6, "For God made man in his image." And also from Numbers 9:18, "By the word of God." From Isaiah 45 verse 12, "I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens." Also Numbers 11 verse 1, "In the ears of God." Under his feet, Exodus 24:10. Yeshaya 51:9, "The arm of God." Psalms 24 verse 4, "Who has not taken my soul in vain." Genesis 6:8, "In the eyes of God." Also Genesis 8 verse 21, "God said in his heart," and other similar verses regarding physical limbs. 2. Attributes which denote bodily movements and actions, as written in Genesis 8 verse 21, "And God smelled the pleasing aroma." And also Genesis chapter 6 verses 5 to 6. "And the Lord saw, and the Lord regretted." Also Bereshit 11:5, "And God came down." And the same, Genesis 8:1, and God remembered. And from Numbers 11 verse 1, and God heard. And also from Psalms 78 verse 65, then the Lord awakened as one out of sleep. And many more activities of human beings like these attributed to him. Our rabbis, when expounding the scriptures, paraphrase the expressions used for this class attribute, are more careful to render them in an honourable way, and ascribed them all to the glory of the Creator. For example, the verse from Bereshit 28:13, behold, God stood over him. They rendered, the glory of God was present with him. Also from Genesis 6:5, and God saw, they rendered, it was revealed before God, and God came down also. And also the glory of God was revealed, and God went up, all from Bereshit. The glory of God departed from him. They rendered everything in a reverential way and avoided attributing them to the Creator in order not to ascribe to him any kind of physicality or incidental property. The great master, Rabbi Bachya, has already expounded sufficiently at length on this in his Sefer Emunot V'Deot, in his commentary on Parsha Bereshit, Parsha Vayera, and in Sefer Yetzirah, and we do not need to repeat his explanations in this book. What we are all agreed upon is that necessity forced us to ascribe physicality and to speak of him with the attributes of his creations in order that human beings can have some way to grasp the existence of the Creator. The books of the prophets connoted him with corporeal terms because these are closer to our mind and understanding. If they had spoken of him in a more accurate fashion, using words and matters connoting spiritual things, we would not have understood neither the words nor the matters, and it would have been impossible for us to worship something which we do not know, since it is not possible to worship an unknown. Therefore, it was necessary that the words and concepts be according to the understanding ability of the listener, so that the matter will first be grasped in the listener's mind in an understandable corporeal sense from the concrete terms. Afterwards, we will enlighten him and explain to him that all of this was only metaphorical, to bring the matter close, and that the true matter is too fine, too sublime, too exalted, and too remote from the ability and powers of our minds to grasp. The wise thinker will endeavour to remove the husk of the terms and their corporeality, and will ascend in his mind step by step until he will reach the true intended meaning according to the power and ability of his mind to grasp. The foolish and simple person will conceive the Creator in accordance with the literal sense of the metaphor, and if he assumes the service of his Creator and he endeavours to labour for his glory, he has in his simpleness and lack of understanding a great valid excuse, because a man is held accountable for his thoughts and deeds only according to his ability, intelligence, understanding, strength, and material means. But if the foolish is capable of learning wisdom and he neglects it, he will be held accountable for it and punished for his lacking and refraining from study. If the scriptures had employed more accurate, truer terminology, then nobody would have understood it except the wise, understanding reader, and most of mankind would have been left without religion and without Torah guidance, due to their limited intellect and weak understanding in spiritual matters. But the word, which may be understood in a material sense, will not damage the understanding person because he recognizes its real meaning. And it is at the same time beneficial to the simple person, so that it will fix in his heart and mind that there is a Creator which is his duty to serve. This is similar to a man who came to visit a friend who was of the wealthy class. His wealthy host felt a duty to provide his friend with a meal and also food for the animals which he had brought with him. The wealthy man sent him an abundant quantity of barley for his animals and a small quantity of food fitting for him, but only enough for his needs. So too, the scriptures and the books of the pious abundantly employed material analogies when referring to the attributes of the Creator, according to the understanding of the masses and according to the common language which the masses converse. Therefore, when referring to this, our rabbis said, and he quotes from Baba Metzia 31b, the Torah speaks like the common language of men. And the scriptures gave few hints of spiritual matters which are intelligible only to the few wise and understanding men. In this way, even though all people have different views of God's glorious essence, nevertheless all people are equal with regards to knowing the existence of the Creator. Likewise, we will say for all subtle matters found in the Torah, such as rewards in the next world or its punishment. And just some commentary from Chovot HaLevavot, he says, since the good reward cannot be understood by a foolish or simple person, the crude cannot understand spiritual pleasure, only physical pleasures, and likewise only physical punishments. Therefore, the scriptures speak only of physical reward and punishment, and hinted in a few places of spiritual reward and punishment. And Rabbi Bachya continues, and likewise, we will say for the clarification of the inner wisdom, the duties of the heart, which was our intention to clarify in this book. The Torah was very brief in expanding these matters, relying on the intelligent men. The Torah only hinted at it to arouse one on it, such as mentioned in the introduction to this book, so that anyone who is able to inquire and investigate them will be aroused to do so until he has understood and mastered them as written. And he quotes from Mishlei 28 verse 5, those who seek God will understand all things. And a little bit of commentary from Chovot HaLevavot. He says, for spiritual matters, the Torah gave a few hints because this is only for the wise, and the truly wise have a single common viewpoint, and all of them grasp exactly the same matter with only these few hints, according to what is fitting and possible for them, because the false and erroneous ways are numerous, but there is only one way of truth. And Rabbi Bachya continues, the prophet Moshe Rabbeinu has already warned us against thinking that God has a form or likeness as written, and he quotes from Devarim 4:15, take therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of form on the day that the Lord spoke unto you in Horeb at Sinai, out of the midst of the fire. And also he quotes also from Devarim 4:12, and the Lord spoke unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no form. Only you heard a voice. When saying, take good heed, he warned us in our minds and thoughts to not represent the Creator under any form or to conceive him under any likeness or anything or any comparison, since your eyes never perceived any form or likeness when he spoke to you. And it is written also, he quotes from Yeshaya 40 verse 18, to whom will you liken to God? What likeness will you compare to him? And also further on in Yeshaya, verse 25, to whom will you liken me that I will be equal to, says the Holy One. And Pas Lechem comments on that, behold, not only is it beyond the power of man to conceive in him a likeness, but even God testifies on himself that he has no connection whatsoever to any kind of likeness. And it is written, from also in Psalms, he quotes, Psalms 89 verse 7, for who in the heaven can be compared unto the Lord? And also Psalms 86 verse 8, amongst the mighty ones is none like you, O Lord, and many more like this. So I think we're going to pause there this episode and continue chapter 10 in the next episode. But basically it's I think Rabbeinu Bachya, and I also notice Rambam is very similar in his kind of wordings or manner of emphasis, where it's very, very important to even just take the steps to take apart old misconceptions about God. It seems to be a more direct connection when you negate old misconceptions about what God is, or what God is in your mind. And once you can strip away, you are left perhaps with something that you didn't realize was there, a better understanding of God. And perhaps this somehow makes you connect more directly to God. When you're thinking of God in a more true way, your connection is more likely to be correct or stronger. So there is tremendous emphasis on this stripping away of old misconceptions and not applying any human or any other type of imaginings in your mind when thinking of God. So anyway, we look forward to continuing this chapter 10, in next episode.